Actually, I was looking at your slide share that you shared online. And there was one case that was very interesting, which is the Toyota fail hashtag.
Yes.
Yes. Can you elaborate on that case?
Sure. Everybody knows about the big Toyota disaster 2 years ago in the US with problems with braking cars or not braking. What happened just a few weeks ago was that an organization called mummybloggers.org or something like that apparently reached out to mummy bloggers in the US to ask if you put a positive story about Toyota on your blog, you'll get rewarded $10. A little bit more sophisticated. So everybody thought it's a Toyota initiative. And directly a big storm went out on Twitter to try, again, bashing Toyota. Haven't they learned it? They're paying for positive coverage. Luckily Toyota, because they were burned before, they were there. They had an online center that within a few hours said, thanks for pointing that out. We don't have any affiliation with them. Let me investigate. It came out there was no connection with Toyota at all. And then bloggers actually, or Twitterers went in and said, maybe we should apologize to Twitter. And the whole kind of, the volumes were still high, but the negative sentiment turned directly around the moment Toyota went in and said, thanks for pointing that out, it's not us.
Okay, that's a very nice case. So with regards to initiatives, right? All businesses will only invest in certain initiatives if there's a great ROI. So what do you suggest as to how companies can actually measure the effectiveness of their social media strategy and the ROI for such initiatives?
It all depends on what's the initial objective of your social media strategy. And that's a big misperception again. Many companies rush into social media because it's hip and hype and somebody thinks they have to be there without questioning why are we going there and what do we want to achieve. If you use it as a marketing sales generation tool, then you could measure your sales or people that are going on your online site or online purchases. Then you can do an ROI direct measurement. But for most cases, social media is used for corporates for reputation building and more or less public relations efforts. Public relations per se doesn't have an ROI. ROI is a business formula. Dollar on one side, dollar on the other side. Return on investment. Investment, you can say, okay, this campaign cost me X dollars, but the return you can't measure in dollar signs. A Facebook fan, though somebody claims it doesn't have a value per se, depends on what do you do with these fans, right? Nobody would say a fan of a football team has a dollar value. They're important for you because they might buy your merchandise or might support you. But per se, just getting somebody sign up or like you on Facebook, just a very short-term measure. So a lot of things that we measure or people claim that shows their success is very superficial. It's same like collecting articles. If collecting articles would be a measure for traditional PR, then BP would have had the best PR year ever last year. Yes. That's obviously not the case. Same with online. Just because you have 100,000 Facebook fans or 20,000 followers on Twitter doesn't mean a thing per se. It shows a trend, but you have to find different dimensions that show how did it help me to get close to the objective that I had in mind. And a lot of times that might be, first I need to create an online presence.
Yes.
And need to create a platform to interact with my people. And then that brings us to another challenge, and that's how do the different departments and initiatives work together? Sometimes you have marketing with the bigger budgets, the deeper pockets, rushing out, creating a Facebook campaign, and then they forget about it, and you have a zombie site where they got 100,000 fans, but they don't know what to do with it, or they're not interested because it was a short-term sales campaign. Marketing, on the other hand, might not even know that there's a Twitter account from HR. So one of the challenges is get all initiatives together and try to align the objectives and see what's in the greater interest of the whole company.
Okay.
And then you can talk about ROI. But it's more about achieving objectives. If the objective is a dollar figure, a sales figure, then you can talk about ROI. If it's something different, then you still have to measure your success, but ROI is the wrong formula.
All right. So one last question before we end. What is the one most important tip that you can give to a business before they go online?
It's like my friend Stephen Forscher from Microsoft said so nicely. You can't walk without crawling first. Or how I put it, you can't learn swimming without dipping at least a toe into the water.
Okay.
So if you want to go social media with your company, make sure you are there first and get a feeling about it. If you want to sell Coca-Cola, you better think about what do you think about the taste personally, right? So first get in there personally, and then it's a patience. Start listening first. What do people say? Where do they talk? What's the environment? Otherwise, you have people rushing in saying, okay, we want a blog, but we don't want to allow comments because they might be negative. If you don't have that interactive kind of feedback loop, then social media is just used as an advertising one-way communication platform. So first, one step at a time, patience, start with monitoring first, understanding what, where, who is saying about your brand or your environment. An example, if you want to go in with you're an insurance company. If you just look for your brand, you might get very small volumes of conversations about your brand. If you look about your competitors, get already more in some forums, some Facebook, some Plurks, whatever. But if you think about where are people discussing topics relevant to insurance, then you might get multiple volumes and totally in different sites. An example, life insurance. Maybe not the most exciting product. Where would people discuss it? It's discussed a lot in forums around babies. Because if you have a newborn, you want to have safety and safeguard them for their future. So that's where, in the context, you would discuss life insurance. So that's a different approach, like where is your audience, instead of just using the simple keyword search, where's my brand discussed, because that's very narrow, not holistic.
Okay. So do you have any suggestions as to what kind of social media events should people go to learn more about how to create strategies and stuff like that?
There are two ways on going about it. First of all, first look what your competitors are doing, but then don't be so narrow-minded on just looking on your competitor industry set. Look first of all outside your industry and think what can be adopted. What might work in insurance business might work in hospitality, maybe not. Get an idea. Second, look out of the mainstream. Yes, Facebook is the largest global social media network, but if we consider that the fastest growing internet markets are China, Russia, and Brazil, and those are the weak spots of Facebook, then it says if you want to have it globally, look into those markets, look into what's happening on Weibo, on the Sina environment, on the QQs, the Renrens, look into Orkut. Look in what's happening in Russia if you really want to have some inspiration. It's not so much about the forums or the physical conferences. They are important to get to know people, but it's really also looking out of the box. And that's the great thing. There are so many great ideas out there, and sometimes you just have to pick them.
Okay, so really the last final question. How can our viewers reach to you, whether it's through Twitter or do you have any blogs so that they can understand like your views on such?
Sure. I'm on all my networks are normally through my website, Voedisch, voedisch.net,
Okay.
or my Twitter, Lars V.
Voedisch.
That's the easiest to remember, LARSV. I just wrote a blog post on theconversationalcorporation.com.
Okay, we'll check it out.
Rules of engagement. Is your organization social media ready?
Okay, so thank you very much for coming down. I'm sure our viewers would love your insights on this matter, and we'll see you soon.
Good luck.